When was the last time you took a leap of faith, trusting that everything is going to work out? Do you crave growth, or are you merely content with the status quo? If you want more out of your life, out of your career, and out of your relationships, you are in the right place. Take the leap and discover how to create a life by design rather than living it by default. Real success starts with you. Now here's your host, Colleen Biggs.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Take the Leap. I am your host, Colleen Biggs, and I am so excited to really dive into a really fun episode today. Many of us say we're CEOs in our business. We say that we're solopreneurs, or we may run a larger corporation as the CEO, but have we really shifted into the role of being the CEO, especially if you've climbed that corporate ladder or have been in corporate in the past? You might not have shifted your mindset or really moved into the role of what a great visionary CEO can be. So today we're going to dive into that with my guest, Candice Gottlieb-Clark, and we will be right back with her in just a second. First, I would like to thank our sponsor for today, BizBolster Web Solutions. Imagine if you increase the visits to your website to have a consistent flow of new business. BizBolster Web Solutions designs websites and sets up tools that not only attract your new prospects, but also starts building the know, like, and trust factor for those prospects when they land on your website. Through exceptional websites and targeted SEO, our clients are not only found online, but are also available to convey their area of expertise as well as what's in it for me to their prospects. Imagine if it was that easy for you to increase your sales for your business by driving more traffic to your website. Well, it is. Be sure to visit BizBolster Web Solutions at www.bizbolster.com to download your free SEO guide and schedule your discovery session today. Thank you so much, BizBolster Web Solutions, for being the sponsor of today's show. All right, y'all, here we go. You know, when I get excited about having a fun guest that I really feel is going to bring a lot of value, tips, and tools to give you today to really be able to shift into that role of CEO. And Candice is a renowned business advisor, coach, conflict management specialist, and the founder of Dynamic Team Solutions. She and her team of experts help organizations and leaders across all industries raising the level of their business functionality, teamwork, and productivity. And you guys, we know right now this is very important in corporate America, especially because so many people are displaced working from home. And it will be like that forever. And I've heard some crazy stuff lately, and I can't wait to get into it. Candice holds a master's degree in counseling and is a board certified executive coach. She is sought after speaker and writer on topics including leadership, communication, conflict management, and team dynamics. Candice, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Colleen. It's just a pleasure to be here with you today.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I told Candice, her and I both had technical challenges this morning. And I said, but we got it all fixed just in time to go live and record the show, which tells us someone out there needs to hear this message, because I completely believe in that. So a friend of mine was telling me the other day, Candice, that some corporate offices are watching every move that their virtual employees are making by recording every time, you know, the time is recorded by every time their mouse moves. And I thought to myself, talk about being under the thumb. You know, when we don't create trust between us and other people, how do we expect to get the most out of those individuals that are working for us? That's a problem with communication, wouldn't you say, Candice?
Oh, it's more than communication. It's a problem with leadership, first and foremost.
Yeah.
It's a problem with trust, as you just said, because monitoring people that way is the quickest way to show that they are not valued for their expertise. They're valued for their time. Yeah. And you can't pay people for their time, especially when you're having hybrid and remote. You have to pay for their performance and the outcomes they bring. And, you know, focusing on the wrong thing is just a shortcut for poor management.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think that's just not the way to go. Now, you've had 20 plus years experience of working with leaders. Tell us a little bit about your start, because you've taken some leaps in your life. You've moved in career shifts. You've had to shift yourself into the role of a CEO. Let's talk about that so our listeners can really get to know you a little bit better.
No, I'd love to, Colleen. So I got into this current profession of working with companies in conflict management, conflict resolution in the year 2000. It's easy for me to remember how long, because that was, a nice round number. So 22 years ago. And when I first got into it, it was just exactly a call to my skill set. I'd never learned about the field of mediation before that. Suddenly I learned about how it could be used outside of a court or legal setting. And it was a perfect match for my already existing skills and intuition. And so it allowed me to really catapult beyond that. And a couple of years into starting in that field, I started my own business, and I was doing absolutely everything, as I think every entrepreneur of a small business does, right? I was not only the performer of the work, but I was also the marketer, the salesperson, the business development, the bookkeeper, the receptionist. I was everything all the time. And it was understandably exhausting. And even just today, I still look back and I think, where can I maybe bring on resources besides myself to take some stuff off my plate? Because I have expertise I'm not honoring or using in the world when I'm spending my time doing invoicing or running to the bank or other things. And I think that's true for a lot of women. And I realized this and started to bring on, slowly a person here, a person there as consultants to work with me. And in late 2016, 2017, my husband and I decided we were moving out of California, that we were done with Los Angeles. It wasn't for us. and it became really crystal clear. And I'm a mom of, especially then, 2 young girls. They're now 9 and 13 and first day of school today. I had to make the shift of, I can't do all the work anymore, or I will be on the road constantly. And my kids, my family, that means too much to me. That was part of why I started my own businesses. So I'd have that ability to protect my time. And yet it had gone the other direction, where my time was, I was the worst boss ever, because I made my employee myself. That is, work nights, weekends, holidays, on vacation, while I was breastfeeding, whatever it was. There was always some work that could be done. Anyhow, and knowing that, I thought I really concretely needed to get some support. I actually worked with a coach, much like yourself. Mm-hmm. And I rebranded. Instead of, the original company name was Mediating Solutions, and I rebranded as Dynamic Team Solutions. The work already was broader. And this allowed me to not only honor the broader level of work our company was doing, but also to say there's a team of us doing it. And the hardest shift I thought would be giving up the work that I loved so much, because I needed to be the one that brought it in. I had the connections, I had the relationship, I had the vision for all of it. I can't teach that. I can only teach so much. And there are other experts that had similar skills as me, maybe not one person with all of them, but several people with parts of them, some better than me. It's great when you find that talent, right? And I just brought them in as consultants and said, when I have the work, would you work with me on these? And would you be the person that does that? I thought I'd miss the client-facing work. And I found my role as being the connector for the client, the architect of the project, the person that stayed involved throughout to make sure everything happened. I found that was so joyful for me. And I get to mentor the consultants. We have these collaborative calls at least once a month to talk about how it's going and to give them support and advice and wisdom that I can contribute to what they're already doing for the client. And so we have this wonderful relationship I do with the clients as well as with our consulting team, but I get to also grow the business. And so that was the big shift I made. And it was a leap in that I didn't know that I would enjoy giving up the actual work. It took me a long time to get there, almost 15 plus years to get there. And then once I got there, I was like, wow, this is wonderful. I love it. And I've been able to grow because of it.
Yeah. I think we spent a lot of time working in our zone of excellence because it's comfortable. And, a lot of women, the number one thing when I work with my clients is figuring out where they're spending their time. That's the very first thing we do. Once I figure out where they're spending their time, I realize where they're wasting their time in a lot of areas. And the mindset of that is, I can't afford to bring on another person until I'm making more money. And it's actually just the opposite of that. You need to bring on someone that you can hand some things off to so you can make more money. It's exactly what you were saying. What happened to me back in was May of 2020. And I hired a business coach as well. And I also hired a VA. That was one of the first things I did. And because I hired a VA, it freed me up of things that were, uploading podcasts, things that weren't making me money. It was giving me visibility, but it wasn't making me money. I offloaded newsletters and those types of things, a lot of admin back end role things that I needed done so that I could open myself up to sell. And anyone that thinks you're not in the marketing and sales business, you are, because every time you open your mouth, you're selling yourself. So that's what a CEO does at a large corporation. They're getting buy-in from the rest of the company on a vision, right? And everyone needs to adopt that vision and be excited about it to all work toward a similar goal. So as you're hiring all of these different consultants and VAs or bookkeepers or marketers or podcasters or whatever you're hiring to work on your team, I have several of them on mine as well. It allows you to work in your zone of genius so that they can take care of the excellence stuff, right? And it appears to other people, as you said, people tell me, you're everywhere. I see you everywhere. How do you do that? They think I'm the one behind the scenes making all of it happen everywhere. And it's like, well, I have a team that's helping me appear, to be everywhere. And I realized how important that is because the CEO at a company, let's say there's 20 employees, they don't go to the accounting department and send out checks. They don't go over to the receptionist and answer the phone. They're not going to the marketing department and setting up or IT and setting up websites. Yet for some reason, because when we start a business, like you said, Candice, that shift to move from the critical thinking piece of everything in our business that we have to get done to shifting to the mode of the goals, where are we going, the vision of working on the company and being in that CEO role is so tough for women to do because they feel like they have to do everything. Where do you think that comes from?
So many things. I think women naturally, just like thinking back to hunter-gatherer societies, right? Women are the gatherers. And we're really good at multitasking. We're really good at keeping aware of all the things that are going on. And I learned this from my own experience of starting my business. I needed some capital. I didn't have the ability. I didn't have enough money in the bank that I could start my business. I was still a single woman and I'd never had a job at a big firm. I was always working for nonprofits and just kind of eking out an existence.
Serving. She was serving.
And so when I was looking to start my own business, I actually secured an SBA loan, which I have learned since is really, really hard to do. But I don't want to even say that I advise it if there's other options because their interest rates are ridiculously high. They're almost punitive, even though you're thinking small business administration, they're going to treat you so well. They do. And yet, anyway, that aside, I needed capital because I couldn't do it. And then I wanted to really make sure I could stretch that as long as possible. So I didn't want to pay anybody to do those things. And I was capable and I didn't have the business coming in yet. And I think that's where women come from with that. It's like, well, I don't have the money to pay for this. I still need to pay my own rent and I'm not bringing anything in. And if I'm not bringing anything in, I have the time. And that's true. And there's a place where that scale kind of tips because you might only need 10, 20 hours a week to work with clients and marketing and connecting. And it might be too much to do more than that anyway, where you just feel exhausted without feeling the progress. But once you start to get things going, like you said, hiring a virtual assistant, that VA can make such a difference in it being economical and yet still supportive. It's not always easy to find the right person, but, little bits at a time, chip it away and see if you can't fill it. One of the things for me was I had to, because I was really hitting the rubber was hitting the road right around the time I was having my kids. And so I had to bring on a nanny. And I only started with her 8 hours a week. And then she went up to 12, then she went up to 16, then she went up to 20. And I had half day, 4 days a week. And about that time, my daughter was sleeping in the afternoons for about 4 hours. And I was almost getting a 40-hour week out of those two things. And that allowed me to see as much time as I gave to my business to grow, it did. I always found more work came in when I had more time for it, which is what I've learned is the lesson. Make more time for it, more will come to you.
That's right. That's right. I want to get into your leadership book that you wrote, Find, Fix, Fill Your Leadership Gap. Talk to us about what the leadership gap is. So I really want to dive into this and why
I love
you wrote
this.
it. Yeah.
Let me start with the why, because I think that's, it's where I start the book is the why, because I think it's helpful for people to know where this comes from. I've been working with businesses for more than 20 years, about 20 years, because even though I started in the field of mediation in 2000, I got my business up and running in 2002. Mm-hmm. So over that 20 years, I've worked with multiple businesses, and being really that trusted person that they'll tell everything to, they'll show their dirty laundry to, or I'll find it, even if they didn't tell me, I would know the stuff that was going on. And a couple of things that I learned from there that I think are important to know. One is how impossibly uncomfortable it is to tell a business leader that they're the problem when you started a project and they told you someone else was the problem. And I would learn oftentimes that was the case. So I changed and shifted what I would say. And before I was even hired, or before I'd started working with the team members that were involved, I would say to whoever was the hiring authority, if I find out that any of this trails back to you, how would you like me to let you know? And universally, I'd get this, kind of self-deprecating laugh. Of course, it's going to come back to me. And that would it would make it so easy, because then when it happened, I'd say, do you remember that day that I talked to you about the possibility? And they're like, oh God, what did I do? But that was such a huge, it was such a wonderful thing to have them say and to have it consistently said, because it showed me, okay, these leaders want to do better. They have finite knowledge of what they're doing and how it's impacting others, and giving them that knowledge. Well, 20 years into this field, I have immense knowledge of all the different companies and all the different leaders and teams I've worked with. And I was very aware of the patterns I was seeing, but I didn't have the wherewithal to put it into a book until, more recently. It was something many of my clients would say, just write the book. I just need this at my fingertips all the time. And so Find, Fix, Fill Your Leadership Gap is based on 3 stories I use throughout the book that are actual 3 clients I worked with. And I teach through that, not only what leaders are doing wrong, how to change it, and then generally how to improve those skills if they're weak. So that's kind of the crux of the book. And one of the main things that I think is important in it is that there's a 3-legged stool to leadership. And the 3-legged stool, meaning that if any of these 3 areas is weak, the other 2 will certainly fail, are trust, role clarity, and conflict management. And there is a big chunk of Find, Fix, and Fill, independent of each other, that focuses exactly on those 3 to really carry that information throughout, But, I want to say I can say stuff on each of them, but one of the things since we started on trust that I like to say, and it's really important for people to be aware of this. Honesty is what people think of when they hear trust. And honesty is the lowest rung on the trust ladder. It is just expected. It's not going to move the needle on people trusting you more. They expect you to be honest with them. It's so much beyond that. It's, the main key pieces beyond the honesty are the transparency and just sharing things beyond what is required, beyond what might have been asked. The openness of being open to other people's perspectives, open to feedback, and respect, because even if you're transparent and open, even if you're honest, if you don't do it with respect, you are not going to build trust. Yeah. And in the book, I talk about that. I'll share something that I think will help that to stick in people's minds. In the book, I talk about it and I say transparency, honesty, openness, and respect. Those 4 letters spell Thor. And I talk about Thor as the Norse god. And I came up with it before the movie was released and now big. But anyhow, I talk about that Thor as the Norse god is known for creating mighty storms with his hammer, or in the movie's case, her hammer. And yet Thor's also known for strength. If you inhabit transparency, honesty, openness, and respect in yourself and in your teams, you're going to have the power and strength of Thor. And if you fail, you will have the mighty storms.
That sounds amazing. How would you say that someone out there would fill the leadership gap? So what are some steps that someone can take today that's a leader that might not have a board of directors around them or some other departments of people that they can speak to? what is the best way for a solopreneur, which we have a lot of them that listen to this podcast, female solopreneurs, how would they go about really understanding where their gaps are in leadership if they're not working with a business coach? Obviously, I'm going to recommend that they, look at working with someone like you or myself or anyone in the industry that can assist you in your leadership and working with those gaps. But how could they identify them? Is it something where they need to make a list of questions that they ask themselves and then they ask someone else to ask them those questions? What are some exercises that you recommend for that?
That's a great question. I don't have a ready answer for that, but just to be
or how
really
do you
in touch
go
with
about
that,
it?
with the when it's independent entrepreneurs, I think that, and for me, because my business is largely me with a bunch of consultants. I do have a couple employees, but otherwise it's consultants that collaborate with me and they are part of our team. So it's still that, but there's also a level of, okay, this is my business that we're running. And so as a result of that, what I think about primarily is that trust piece, that transparency. Just share with them what's going on, share with them what the client's concerns are, not being afraid to tell them, hey, that client was a little disappointed with this, but here's what I think you could do to add to it. What are your concerns? What are your thoughts? And being open to what they say as well. What are we missing? And just having those conversations. So just being really transparent. It doesn't have to be self-deprecating in every occasion. It could just be information sharing, making it more possible for success by giving people what they really, truly need. Yeah. And the role, all three of the pieces have touches of it. In truth, the bulk of it can help with not just your business life, but your personal life. So when I want to say it's probably more tuned into the manager who's growing up and wants to have good skills from the get-go, the leader who's aware of the fact they're having struggles on their team. I was on the call with a very large organization, international organization yesterday, and they were telling me, it was so in line with the story you told at the beginning of the hour, of our half hour, is that there was a member of the team, two members had conflict, we'd helped to resolve it. And one of the leaders above these two had said, I think you guys ought to start recording your calls. Because they work remotely. And it was just like, okay, first you need my book. And second, you have to understand you're creating more conflict because by doing that, you're saying, let's not trust, let's monitor. And there's no better way to create more friction than telling people you're monitoring them. And that's the message it gives. So, the conflict management piece is a part of that. Like you can be transparent and honest, but if there's friction, address that friction. Yeah. And know that it's going to be much better to go through that with somebody, because just like, our closest friends, we've had friction with them, our spouses, we've had friction, our children, our parents, and it doesn't damage and demolish the relationship. It lets you know the other one better. It lets you build awareness and understanding, and it enhances the relationship because people know we can work on things together. If they can bring up things, they can hear things. And so if you're the one bringing it up as a business owner yourself, you can also be one that says, and I want to know what I'm doing that could be supported differently.
Oh, yeah. Especially, if you've got clients, the goal is to never lose a client again. Right. So, if you do have a client that, after a year or so isn't working with you anymore, I think it's always important to ask them a series of questions so that how you were as a leader and something, their opinions. And that's how we can always constantly turn it back and look at how we are performing as a leader. And I think rapport is huge. We didn't talk about that, but building rapport with people is one of the biggest pieces that we need to focus on, because building that rapport is really going to, like you said, build that trust, and honesty's at the bottom. So just be honest, because everyone's expecting you not to lie to them, and then build that rapport with them, and ask others, get a mentor and ask others, how they see you as a leader and what are your positive attributes and what are some areas that they feel you need to work on. It's always good to get other opinions too. Not that we care about what everyone else thinks. We talk a lot about that. It's not about judging your confidence based on what other people think about you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying as a leader, another colleague that may be at the same level of what you're doing in your business, and having those conversations with them in any, just like a survey you would fill out, of how an event went. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, maybe for the listeners, it's good to share that this would be, I'm sure we both see it this way, a success conversation. Yeah. Where could I be better for you? Like, even if it's a client that you worked with, what could I have done that would have made our experience of working with you better?
Yeah.
Not to say I did anything wrong, because sometimes people are, I shouldn't say sometimes, almost always people are resistant to give direct feedback if they don't have to. And we know that even internal in organizations, the feedback that's given is often really severely lacking in the actual detail and content that's valuable to the person. We all want to be better. We all want to grow. I mean, like I said at the beginning, leaders I talk to, I'd say, if I learn, do you want to know? And they'd be like, of course I'm part of the problem. Tell me, and they genuinely meant it. And it's because, that was something that was made clear as this is going to be a part of the process. Right. Everybody does want to grow. And so don't be afraid to give someone feedback, and don't be afraid to ask for it. But because it's hard for people to give it, maybe ask for it is, how could this engagement have been more successful to you?
Yeah. I love that. That's great. Yeah, for sure. Well, Candice, I want everyone to be able to reach out to you, and I want them to be able to find you. What is the best way for them to connect with you and, get to know you a little bit better and get connected with you ongoing?
I would love that. So I have several options. I will just touch on them. I know they're probably going to be in show notes. My website is dynamicteamsolutions.org. That was solutionsplural.org. I also have an author website, which is my name, CandiceGottlieb-Clark.com. And on either of those two, you'll find access to my book, both a link that'll take you to my Amazon page, but also an access point to get 2 free chapters. So you can start the book before you buy the book and decide, is this going to be good for me? Is this sound like a voice I can listen to? I don't have an audiobook, but as you read it, we all have that voice in our head that we're hearing. Does it resonate? Because I think the content is incredibly valuable. It doesn't always match everybody's ability to take in information. So just check it out. I think people would really like it. And if you like, you can always sign up for our newsletter and find me as well on LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn page that I use regularly.
Yeah, you can find her on Facebook. For those of you that are on Facebook now seeing this and want to connect with her at Dynamic Team Solutions, right now we have all of the links in there for you. If you're listening to this on the podcast, they're at your fingertips. You can click on there. And of course, we invite you to not only click on our links, but, follow our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook. You can find all of that at Colleen Biggs so that you can connect with us and all of our guests and the tips that they share and our Member Monday spotlights that we have and all of the other workshops that we do that are constantly sharing business tips for each one of you. And shifting into that CEO role may be one of the biggest things that you ever do, honestly, in your life, is shifting your mindset and shifting your responsibilities into that CEO role so you can truly grow the successful business you're looking to grow. And remember, ladies, you're the only you that's ever been. You're the only you that's ever going to be. That's it. There's only one you. How you navigate your business and lead your business with your leadership skills. Do what you need to do to go to conferences or be around masterminds of people that are great leaders if you want to work on your leadership skills. We're never done growing in leadership. I always say, if learning is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. Absolutely. We cannot be great leaders if we refuse to continue learning, like Candice said, and becoming a better version of ourselves every day. So Candice, thank you so much for being on our show today. It was such a pleasure having you here. And this is such an important piece to success for any woman in business.
Colleen, thank you so much for having me as your guest today. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you, and I hope that the audience enjoyed the conversation as much as I have.
I know I did. So why don't you guys all go out and check out her book, Find, Fix, Fill Your Leadership Gap. Make sure you pick up a copy of that today. And until next time, we want you to all be safe, be you, and be strong. Until then, bye-bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of self-discovery, where you learned the tools to create a life by design. Remember, you are the only you there is, and you are the only you that will ever be. Be you and be strong, because you are brilliant, and the world needs you at your best. We cannot wait for you to join us again next time.